everyone, welcome to lesson 1.6 where we are going to be multiplying and dividing with integers. Go ahead and take out your notes so that you can follow along with me in the video. We're going to start off with a little investigation with a calculator. Now you probably won't need a calculator for this left-hand column here because you already know how to multiply and divide with positive integers. However, once we start to get to the negatives in the middle column and the right column, you might not remember how to do that, and that's okay. So go ahead and investigate that with a calculator. I'm going to ask you to pause the video in just a moment, and I want you to evaluate each of the problems in these three columns. Are you ready? Pause the video. All right, welcome back. Let's see how you did. I first want you to pay close attention to the left column and the middle column. Let's take a look at the answers. Oh, did you get positive answers for every single one of them? Yeah, me too. Well, of course we're going to get positive answers when we're multiplying and dividing positive numbers. But what about the middle column? Do you notice how a -7 times a -3 gives you a positive 21? And a -14 divided by a -7 gives you a positive 2? Do you notice how when both of the integers are negative, in each case we always get a positive answer? That's true all the time. Well, how are you going to remember that? Well, this is a little trick I like to use. When the signs agree, the answer is positive. So agree means to be the same. So if both of the integers are positive when we're multiplying and dividing, the answer is positive. If both of the integers are negative when you multiply and divide, the answer is positive. So if both of the integers' signs are the same or they agree, the answer is positive. All right, let's look at the column on the right. Now, do you notice how this is a positive 2 multiplied by a -3? And here we have a -27 divided by a positive 3. Do you see how the signs are different? And did you notice with the answers and everything in this column, they're all negative? That's true every time. When you take a positive and a negative number and you multiply or divide them, you're always going to get a negative answer. So a good way to remember that would be when the signs disagree or they're different, the answer is negative. So here the signs are different. We could say they disagree, and to disagree is a negative thing. So our answer is negative. Well, let's think about this one. 2 times -3. This is really two groups of -3. -3 and -3 make a -6. So it makes sense. So to make this easy to remember, if the signs are the same, we say that the signs agree, and the answers are positive. If the signs disagree and are different, we say the answer is always negative. So just a quick way to remember it. So let's practice. Here in number 1, we have 2 times -6. Well, we know that 2 times 6 is 12, but will the answer be positive or negative? Well, the first integer is positive 2, and we're multiplying it by -6. So the signs are different. They disagree, which means the answer is going to be negative, -12. Now think about it. If we have two groups of -6, because that's what multiplication is, groups of. So two groups of -6, a -6 and another -6, well, that would give us -12. Let's try number 2. -8 times -8. Well, we know 8 times 8 is 64, but would the answer be positive or negative? You're right. Since the signs are the same, we say that the signs agree, and therefore the answer is positive. Now let's try this one. 0 times -17. Ah, you're right. The answer is 0. Well, every time we multiply a number by 0, we get 0. But the tricky part is that this -17, sometimes students think that the answer should be -0. Oh no, 0 doesn't have an opposite. 0 is just 0. It's not positive and it's not negative. So anything times 0 is just 0, not -0, because that doesn't even exist. All right, let's try 4. Here we've got a situation. The temperature dropped 5 degrees each hour for 7 hours. We want to use an integer to represent the total change in temperature. So remember, an integer is either a positive or negative number. What integer represents the total change in temperature? Okay, so really we want to figure out the integer that represents the change in temperature is blank. Okay, so let's look what's happening. Temperature's dropping 5 degrees. What integer represents to drop 5 degrees? Yeah, -5. Now this happens each hour for 7 hours. So the first hour it drops -5, then another -5, then another -5, then another -5, and it does that 7 times. So how can we figure out the total change in temperature? Well, We could take the -5 drop in temperature and multiply it by 7 because it drops 7 times. Well, how much total temperature change are we going to see? Yep, -35 degrees, absolutely. So the integer that represents the change in temp is -35. We see a drop of 35 degrees over those 7 hours. All right, number 5. On 5, it looks like we have a lot of multiplication. Right here, multiply, multiply, multiply. What do you notice here? Absolute value bars here and here. And remember, absolute value is a number's distance from 0 on the number line, and distance is always positive. So I want you guys to treat the absolute value bars kind of like grouping symbols, and I want you to evaluate them first. So the absolute value of -5 is the number's distance from 0 on the number line. How far away from 0 is -5 on the number line? Yeah, 5 units away. So the absolute value of -5 is just 5. All right, we're going to bring everything down. Now let's do this absolute value. The absolute value of 2 is just 2 because it's 2 units away from 0 on the number line. All right, bring everything down. Now we're really just multiplying all these numbers together. We could grab 2 at a time, -1 times 3, and then 5 times 2. And if I do that, here the signs disagree, giving me -3, and here the signs agree, giving me +10. Now when I take -3 times 10, I know 3 times 10 is 30, but because the signs are different, they disagree, the answer would be -30. Okay, in 6. Here again, we're multiplying, invisible operation here, and you see the parentheses stuck to the absolute value bar? That's also invisible operation of multiply. So first I want to do absolute value. Consider it grouping symbols. You want to do what's in there first. The absolute value of -2 is 2 because it's 2 units away from 0 on the number line. Now I want to multiply -3 times -1 times 2. So I'm going to put parentheses around the 2. I could also just put a big dot right here just to represent multiply. Now I've got 3 numbers I'm multiplying together. Well, think -3 times -1. Here the signs agree, and that answer would be +3. And then if I multiplied it by 2, I would get 6. All right, so just kind of recapping these two. When we see absolute value bars, we want to evaluate that first. In number 7, here this part is read the opposite of the absolute value of -28 divided by 7. Okay, again, we want to first do what's in the absolute value bars. Consider it like grouping symbols. We do that first, just like parentheses, the P, we do that first. So what's the absolute value of -28? How far away is it from 0 on the number line? Yeah, it's 28 units. Now what do you think is going to happen here with this negative front? Right, it's just going to get dropped straight down. So this is saying the opposite of the absolute value of -28. If the absolute value of -28 is 28, then the opposite of that would be -28. Now let's divide it by 7. Well, we know 28 divided by 7 is 4. Because the signs are different or they disagree, the answer is -4. Nice. Okay, take a look at 8. Now there's no absolute value in 8, but we do have division and multiplication. And we know that when they come together in the same problem, we need to do them left to right. So I'm going to go from left to right, and I'd stop right here at divide. I want to do division first. So 63 divided by 7 is 9. Negative divided by negative, well, we know if the signs agree, they're the same, the answer is positive. +9. Now bring down everything. Now, 9 times -3, here the signs are different. They disagree. So my answer is going to be negative, and I just multiply them together, -27. All right, our last one here. What integer and 6 have a product of -54? Well, product means multiply. So what integer do I multiply by 6 to give me a product or answer of -54? Okay, well, if I'm going to multiply something by 6 and get a negative answer, that means these signs of these two numbers have to disagree. So if 6 is positive, that means x has to be negative. So 6 times what negative number would give me -54? You've got it, -9. So the integer we're looking for is -9. Thank you so much for joining me for lesson 1.6. The next step would be to go into your packet and complete multiply and divide integers 1.6 worksheet, and then enter your answers into backpacks. Thank you so much. Have a great day.